on mute if you're not talking, and Chelsea is going to be behind the scenes controlling the tech because I cannot look at the PowerPoint at the same time. Okay, I see lots of familiar faces in the room. Thank you so much for joining us today, guys. I'll try not to monopolize your attention too much this evening, but we felt as the collective that's managing South Africa's Travel Ready that it was opportune for us to share a little bit about what we have done and where we are going, and to give you an opportunity to lean in and give us any feedback that you feel needs to be incorporated or perhaps considered as we go along with our South Africa's Travel Ready and I Am Tourism campaigns. So I'll just give it another couple of seconds to get people in the room. I see we've got a few people in the waiting room who are waiting to join. And again, if you didn't hear me a little bit earlier, please do keep yourself on mute so that we can just minimize all the background noise and keep it tidy. Of course, the chat is open, as it will be for the duration of our session today. If you have any questions, if you have any comments, we would welcome those on the chat. Please feel free to type those in. We also have a recording of that chat after the fact, and if we are unable to answer all your questions today, we will run through those questions to see how we can respond to them in text format, or perhaps in another Tourism Tuesday event. Right, so let me get going. I know this is a bit of death by PowerPoint, but bear with me, I'm very sorry. I felt it important just to give you a little bit of an overview of what we actually are. And some of you will have seen on social media, the South Africa is Travel Ready, the I Am Tourism. You may have wondered what is behind this campaign, who is behind this campaign, more importantly, and how you can be involved in the campaign. So this is not a campaign that exists outside the tourism industry. It was the Tourism Business Council's inbound recovery team, and many of you will have attended the webinar, or the webinars rather, that were held to explain how the Tourism Business Council's different groupings were putting together tourism strategies, recovery strategies that were submitted to government and would provide a compelling basis for government lobbying. So those strategies were data-driven strategies, they were shared, and in conjunction with that, those shared recovery strategies, at the time, there was a feeling that we needed to do a bit of media lobbying as well. So the inbound recovery team reached out to us as a team of PR and communications companies who all work in the tourism industry. We all have clients in the travel and tourism space, both locally. And as the tourism industry was coming together to collaborate and work together for the reopening as quick as possible and as safely as possible for tourism in South Africa, we felt as a collective of professional PR and communications company that actually we needed to lean in and help. So we formed this collective called South Africa's Travel Ready, and we have been working since the beginning of June pro bono on your behalf as an industry to motivate through media for the reopening of tourism as quickly as possible and as safely as possible. So our immediate focus was around the South Africa's Travel Ready. And at the time we launched, there was a lot of media coverage internationally, as you will have remembered, about this February reopening date. So the very first thing we did was go into crisis communication mode and try and undo some of the reporting internationally that had happened around February 2021 reopening. And I'm very pleased to say we managed to get most of it overturned. So that is what our responsibility was at that time. But that doesn't mean to say that that strategy doesn't evolve as a business would evolve, essentially. So we then looked at the focus around motivating for a phased reopening. So what would happen then to make sure that we did reopen, and that started with domestic. As you will have seen, there was a lot of coverage around domestic tourism. Next up, it would be regional, and then next up, eventually international inbound. So we are following, we are mirroring the inbound recovery team's strategy, and we report into that inbound recovery team, which, as I say, is a subset of the Tourism Business Council, and we are there to support, from a media perspective and a social media perspective, the messaging that that inbound recovery team has put across. So we have sat back a little bit, having had the benefit of a couple of months of doing this now, and said, okay, what do we do to actually really take this a little bit more forward and to ensure that we're all singing off the same hymn sheet? Because Natalia saying something is one thing, but can you imagine if we have a tourism industry of 1.5 million people saying the same thing or saying similar things so that we sing off the same hymn sheet? So we've ramped this up to a 3-pillar approach, and you will have seen the I Am Tourism and the South Africa's Travel Ready. I Am Tourism, I'm going to take you through in a little while. It is a campaign around women. Gents, don't feel out. We still love you. The reason why it is a women's campaign is because it's Women's Month, as you will have known, and also Women's Day is fast approaching, and we obviously want to highlight the fact that 70% of our tourism workforce is women. And then South Africa is travel ready, has both a domestic and an inbound international pillar to it. So we understand that we are going to have to promote the fact that South Africa is travel ready from a domestic perspective first, leading on then to international once we are allowed to open our borders. So that's just an overview of where we've actually come from. And if you want to see who the lovely ladies are who are working for you behind the scenes, and I don't know if I will ever have words to explain what they have done on behalf of our tourism industry and the generosity of time, of insight to this cause without having to beg. They've literally put their hands up. They've lent in. As I said, they are all doing this for free as PR companies, as reputation management professionals, with all their networks in media, with all their networks in influencers. You could not pay for what you are getting, is what I'm saying, as someone who works in the tourism industry. It just doesn't exist. So we have in the room all the logos of those companies that are involved, as well as the ladies who are involved, and I'll go through them from left to right. We have Amy from Scribe Consulting, we have Chelsea from Big Ambitions, Danielle from Big Ambitions, we have Davina from Tribeca, we have Denise from Darling Llama, we have Dion, who's from Take Note, we have Gisela from African Twist Travel, we have Leslie Simpson from her own LSC Integrated Communications, we have myself, Natalia, we have Palesa from Vuma, and then we have Shireen from Hunter Group. And these are all agencies that have some invested interest in the tourism industry, but more, we care about you as a tourism industry. And we are putting a lot of effort, networking, leveraging the networks that we have to make sure that we have that conversation of tourism in the media, in social media constantly. What we're asking your help with is to help amplify that and to make sure that the messaging that we are pushing out is messaging that we're all echoing so that we're a lot more powerful. I'm not going to read through these. This is from the Inbound Recovery team who were kind enough to send us little testimonials. But as a summary, what I will pull out from this is that this is our job. We are communications and PR specialists. If you asked me to put a package together for a tourist, I wouldn't know where to start. If you asked me how to open a B&B, I wouldn't know where to start. If you asked me to be hospitable to guests in a guest house, I wouldn't know where to start. But if you asked me to put a media, PR and social media campaign together, or leverage my relationships with the Daily Maverick, Business Day, Daily Telegraph, overseas, etc., that I can do. So what I'm asking you today is to put trust in the communications professionals that you have on your screen as soon as I finish sharing the presentation, because we have put together an amazing strategy, a 3-pillar strategy that is aimed at providing context to where we are as a country. And it might not move fast enough for what you need it to, but like a business, you don't switch direction just because something is not working for you right now. You've got to give it a bit of time. So I am asking for your patience, but I am also asking for your feedback. We are here, we've set up an email address called media@travel2southafrica.org for that feedback, and we are committing to having these sessions on an ongoing basis so that you are able to provide feedback and know what it is that we're busy with. So as I mentioned a little bit earlier, the first thing we did was get on the blower to try and overturn some of the damage that had been done internationally with the February 2021 reopening, and you will see just a semblance of some of the articles that have been written. There have been over 200 articles or interviews that have happened over the last 2 months as a result of this PR and media collective. So tourism mentioned in local and international press. The Gareth Cliffs of the world, we have a relationship with Cliff Central. We have an interview lined up. Sunday Times, we've already had women interviewed as part of a Sunday Times article. So we are well down the road from a media liaison perspective, perhaps that you wouldn't actually know. We have reached out to all of our different networks, influencers, media, you name it, locally and internationally, just so that we can get the message of tourism still heard, the message that South Africa is travel ready. So for today, this, I hope, will become a regular event in your diary. I hope you won't get sick and tired of seeing us on the screen and explaining what we're up to and how we would love for you to lean in and help us. And this is just really an opportunity for you to lean in and contribute to the campaign. The invite has been extended far and wide, so we have local and international travel trade on this call today, as well as media, and this is on the record, so you're absolutely welcome as media to listen to what we have to say, and if you have any suggestions, we would welcome those as well. But a little ask from me to keep it tidy. And again, I've just come off a KZN virtual fan. We had lots of people talking at the same time. It's very messy. So if you do want to ask a question or have a suggestion, please paste that into the chat. Even if you want it to be private, you're welcome to send it to one of us privately, and we'll have a look at it. After the event, if you want to submit any questions or any comments, please don't be shy. You can email media@traveltosouthafrica.org once we're off the call. And I promise you, we will read every single email and we will respond to every single email. So what we ask of you, though, throughout this process is to please be diplomatic in your approach. I know this is a tough time. We're all feeling the stress and the strain. To act in the best interest of the tourism industry, because we are here as a collective. So as much as we all representing brands, we have to transcend that, and to put your hand up and volunteer where you can to assist so that we can get the message out that South Africa is travel ready together. So as I mentioned, 3 pillars. We have the first pillar, which is around one voice, and you will have seen the I Am Tourism campaign going out. And that is about highlighting the role that women play within the tourism industry, because we are going into Women's Month and Women's Day on the 9th of August. But more than that, the government's stated agenda is around inclusive growth, including women and youth. And we are in an industry that employs both, especially in areas that are rural areas or peri-urban areas, where often tourism is the only lifeline for those communities. So 70% of the tourism industry is women, 60% are youth. And what we are trying to do is harness the fact that tourism is so important to the women of South Africa, that actually it deserves the attention that it might not necessarily get when we talk about statistics like 1.5 million people employed, like 600,000 tourism workforce applying for UIF tours. It's very easy to ignore an industry when all you do is talk stats. And you need those stats to convey the reality behind what the situation is. But you also need the faces. You need the stories of Pumla, who used to work for a DMC, who has been retrenched, or myself, you know, owning a business and having to ensure that I still pay my 16 staff members so that they still have jobs, essentially. And it all boils down to the human face, the women in tourism. And you will have seen the I Am Tourism placards that we are asking you all to submit, 3,000 by Women's Day, so that we have a really good social media campaign that we can run. But there are other components of that campaign that I'll run through. So we're informing you about the campaign today. We're giving you an opportunity to give us feedback via this specific platform or also on the email. And we are hoping that you will feel enough about this campaign. You will feel as much for this campaign as we feel for you, and have put this campaign together for you as the tourism industry and as for the women of tourism. It doesn't mean that, gents, you've been ignored. This is your opportunity to get behind your women and to make sure that they also have a seat at the table and that their voices are heard. And then amplifying that. So our website has a toolkit on it, which is constantly being updated. And you can then go on there and pull social media overlays for your own images. You can pull little JPEGs that you can put on your social. You can have a look at the newsletter and see what we're busy with. So that toolkit is there to help you to amplify the I Am Tourism message. The middle pillar is the domestic pillar, because we recognize we have to do domestic first, and that is South Africa's travel ready. So this is about us motivating for the opening of subsectors that are deemed safer than others before phase 2. And then the full domestic tourism, intra and intra-provincial travel. And then regional, motivating for this opening of a regional bubble. The South Africa's travel ready messaging in this pillar is all around domestic and regional. What, as a domestic traveler, can you do from a domestic tourism perspective, highlighting all the different provincial options? And that's why we ask for your product news and your really cool videos that we can share on our Facebook and on our Instagram. And then lastly, the third pillar around international. This is the difficult one because we don't have a date. And if I tell you how many emails I get on a daily basis from people asking me for a date, it's incredible. We don't have a date. We have a risk-adjusted strategy. We need to understand that we have a risk-adjusted strategy, but that does not mean that we go quiet in our international markets. What should we be telling our international markets this time proactively so that they know where we are as a destination, what we're doing as a destination to reopen, and more importantly, how we are making sure that when their customers or the guests themselves come to South Africa, that they will have a safe and good experience, and that we take their well-being to heart, essentially. So we like to do things in 5 in 5s and 1 in 1s and 3 in 3s. You'll see that's a little marketing strategy that us marketers like to use a lot, and you'll see that. I think a couple of weeks ago, you will have seen the 5 things that I've asked you to do as an industry, and we're going to keep going on that tack. So the rationale behind Women's Month, at least behind I Am Tourism, as I said, Women's Month, 70% of tourism workforce are women, and government's agenda is around the financial independence of women and inclusive growth of the economy through women. So the 5 tactics that we have, very simply, there's a lot more behind this, behind the scenes. I'm just sharing the kind of overview with you, is this I Am Tourism social media campaign, local and international media, where we have women of influence, women who have a voice, women who have a seat at the table, writing opinion pieces in media on our behalf as tourism, statistics-driven pieces with the survey results that we have managed to collect. And my thanks to the 1,066 businesses that took the time to respond to that survey. We have got some fantastic statistics that illustrate the impact of lockdown on women and the number of women within the tourism industry. And then, more importantly, the human stories, the stories of the women whose livelihoods have been lost, or those women who are inspiring other women at a very, very difficult time in tourism. So those 3 components are our local and international media drive. We are having conversations with affected women. So we are having Zoom conversations with them. We are creating content around that. So social media JPEGs, as well as short video clips, as well as articles around their story, and even the actual video interviews themselves in conversation with, so that other people can listen to what these women are talking about and the importance of tourism to their lives. Then, as I said, influencer pressure. So maybe they don't listen to tourism, but they will listen to women in civil society, business, and government who have a voice. So leaning on the influencers that we know, women who have a voice, to constantly talk up tourism and the importance of tourism. And then you, as the industry, we are going to be doing the do one thing. Every day we will give you a thing to do. And if you want to help us with that, that would be fantastic. On Fridays, we'll give you a 5 in 5, so the 5 things that you can do for the rest of the next week. We'll do our Tourism Tuesdays, as you are now on the inaugural Tourism Tuesday. And as I said earlier, on our website, www.traveltosouthafrica.org, there is a toolkit. You click on the toolkit, you will have assets that you can use for social media. You have updates of what it is that we're busy with. And you also have access to our media at traveltosouthafrica.org email address if you are wanting to provide any suggestions or comments. So I'm pleased to say that we are already over 1,000 photographs of women from all walks of life talking about how they are I Am Tourism. And it's fantastic to see all of these photographs coming through. But I want to hit 3,000 photographs by the 9th of August. So your personal job today, your job today is to go out into your social media and to make sure you have told every woman you know in tourism to get her photograph to us at iamtourism.za@gmail.com. Charles, if you wouldn't mind posting that email address in the chat for me, that would be great. I want to clap that 3,000 mark. So don't let me down, guys. I know we can do this. Tourism industry is big. We're not just tourism, we're travel, we're conferencing, we're curios, we're everything. We have to get to this 3,000 mark. So please, women, men, go out, get your networks to send their photographs through so that we have some great social media assets that we can push out. All right, then South Africa is travel ready. So this is all around the readiness of travel to happen, underpinned by robust safety protocols. We all want to open tomorrow, all of us. I don't think there's anybody in this room today, the 87 people who are in this room, that does not want tourism to open tomorrow. I'm sure if I unmuted you all now, you would be shouting yes. That we know. Okay. But while we can't open and while we are lobbying to open, that doesn't mean we must keep quiet. So we need to communicate to our networks, to media, about this readiness of travel. What is it that we are doing from a safety and hygiene protocol perspective, but not so that we look like the newly formed hospital at the CTICC. We've got to make ourselves look a little bit sexier than that. So how do I experience that tourism product in a safe manner, but still experience it as tourism? And we've been so grateful to many of the influencers who've lent in and said, yes, I'm willing to go as a travel influencer to experience a product and to write about it or record it or photograph it from an experience perspective with this underlying narrative around hygiene and safety. So the phased strategy has been presented to the Tourism Business Council. Do not lose hope. There is a strategy. It is being discussed at national level. It might not be moving fast enough for you. I know that and I understand that, and I'm deeply, deeply sorry about that. But we have a strategy and we have to give it time. In the meantime, though, we can target our energies and direct our energies into telling the world, telling our customers, whether they trade, whether they're consumers, that we are travel ready and that when they can come here, we are safe and we care about their well-being as well as the well-being of our staff. So you will see the South Africa's Travel Ready social media campaign. Many of you have the Facebook frame already. When I scroll on my Facebook feed, all I see is that green frame, which is fantastic. It just lights me up. So thank you so much for that. And we will keep on with that South Africa's Travel Ready social media campaign because we can't keep quiet about that. In local and international media, we are in the process of appointing a spokesperson because we as PR and communications people cannot be the spokespeople on your behalf. And if you know of someone who you feel within the industry is respected at a media level who would garner the attention that needs to be garnered from a spokesperson perspective, please do let us know. We're writing opinion pieces. In fact, I have one open on my computer right now for Rob Moore around game lodges. We do crisis communications. So anytime you see a dodgy article overseas and you want us to try and turn it over, we do that. We write thought leadership around the tourism industry. We have been marketing destinations and products. So anytime you have a press release or a video of your destination or product that isn't a full promo of your product, but actually encapsulates the destination, we push that out on social, as well as talking points and key messages that we're wanting to get to government level. As I said earlier, we've managed to persuade influencers to experience educationals. And we want to put a call out today of those of you who are product owners and feel that you are travel ready and would like to host an influencer, please do let us know. It helps us from having to go and hunt around for you. So if you do feel you're travel ready and willing to host an influencer to get a bit of publicity from us, I'd be greatly appreciative of that. And you can reach out to us on that email address. And then again, industry communications, the media kit on the website, the toolkit that's available for you to communicate with your wider audience. I'm sorry, it is just in English. I'm not able to translate it into other languages, but I'm sure many of you will be able to take the points and translate it into other languages if need be. And then reaching out to our international media connections, which we have. So this is just the homepage of our South Africa's Travel Ready website, which we whipped up in 4 days, would you believe? And we are adding to it constantly. So you can see there is the I Am Tourism call to action in the top banner. And there's also a main menu item for I Am Tourism. There's a main menu item there for trade where you'll find the toolkit for media, why South Africa, and tourism to South Africa. And that website has been live since early June, promoting tourism to South Africa, essentially. So how can you help? Well, comments about the strategy. Tell us what you think. Tell us what's missing. Tell us what we should be thinking about. Tell us about that amazing influencer that you know that would be helpful in this cause. Give us suggested alternative tactics. We're here to listen to you. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen so that I can see all your lovely faces. There we go. And I'm very pleased to have, I think, almost everyone here from the collective, the South Africa's Travel Ready Collective, in the room, as well as some other familiar faces. I see Lloyd is smiling at me. Thank you for joining us. And the chat is open. So I see there's 50 in there already. I'm not monitoring the chat. So who in the collective would like to shoot out some of the questions we've received?
So there have been a few questions, Natalia, but we've been actually answering them as we go along. or should I say, there haven't actually been that many questions. The one was around I Am Tourism, and just if people, you know, if the campaign has already started or if we're waiting until Women's Day. So I said, no, it has started, and that they can send videos and photos, so either are fine. So here, yeah, so here's Ryan. Thanks, Ryan. Ryan actually recently went to the Capitol on the Park as an influencer, and he's just now putting on the chat that he's written a story on it. Yeah, but no other questions are popping up on the chat. Oh, here we go from Lloyd. Are we promoting business travel through these great channels?
We're promoting all travel, Lloyd. Tourism, travel, outbound, inbound, mice, pina coladas and palm trees, the whole shebang.
Sorry, can I just raise a point on my question that wasn't the entire question I raised? I did raise a concern after having got the piece published that there was just very limited support of the piece. We talk in the messaging, we talk in the responsible tourism and those angles, but I don't know, from TBCSA, I just felt like the piece was ignored, I must be honest.
That's great feedback, Ryan. Thanks so much. We'll definitely look into that. Any other questions?
Yeah, I've got a question, and thank you. And I think it's an incredible job that you guys are doing. And thank you to all the ladies involved in this project. I think without you, we wouldn't be achieving anything that we're getting. I have a question probably to you, because you're closer to the bone, is why are we not seeing more industry captains in terms of the business sector in particular being more outspoken about getting travel open?
Are you talking on the travel side or on the tourism side, Lloyd?
I'm talking travel from a business perspective. I mean, Gauteng, you know, delivers all the business to a Cape Town, a Durban perspective. It's complicated. Travel is certainly down. The airlines are struggling. But I'm yet to see industry captains, so-called industry captains, taking a more active stance, in particular in the business space.
Yeah, I hear you. And actually, I had a conversation with Sailesh a few days ago about that specifically. And it definitely is something that needs to be dealt with. But again, it probably needs one spokesperson. It needs one person to rally behind, essentially. So we would need to identify that person in travel, see who'd be the person to stand up and make sure that that travel narrative gets pulled through. Because travel is quite often forgotten in this behemoth that tourism is, essentially. You know, when we talk about outbound travel, it gets lost. Tourism is a lot more sexy to talk about, especially at kind of government level, Lloyd. So I hear you and I completely agree with you. And I will put that on my list of things to look into and report back to you on. Any other questions?
There are a few. So here from Marie-Louise, can we chat about actions we can take not to raise awareness about the plight of our sector and try and pressure government to give us some support or at least a timeline? I think, Natalia, you did cover that in the presentation.
Yes, so Marie-Louise, first thing you can do is to dial in, sorry, I know it's a swear word, to the webinar on Thursday, another webinar. But there you'll have the inbound recovery team who are going to talk to the, I hate these big words because they kind of get lost on me, but there's a structured engagement going on. So let's just simplify that. There are talks around a table, very important talks around a table, which highlight specifically what it is that we're going through as a tourism industry. And this inbound recovery team, I didn't actually pay tribute to them, but the extraordinary work that they have done to gather the data, because that's what government needs, to gather the data that explains what's happening from a tourism perspective. It's outstanding. I mean, we're talking like over 100 pages, which is cold comfort to you. But they're going to be unpacking some of the how on Thursday. And if you haven't registered to attend that webinar, I would suggest that you do register to attend it, because at least then you'll have some information about what we are lobbying for from a tourism industry perspective through the Tourism Business Council and this inbound recovery group. What can you do? As I said, amplify the message that South Africa has these protocols in place, the safety and hygiene protocols in place, that we are very concerned about the well-being of staff and of guests, and that we are putting everything we possibly can into ensuring that when we are open, that the destination is ready for people. But also those quirky, heartwarming things that remind people about why they love South Africa. You know, and this is a silly example, but the Jerusalem challenge that's going around the world at the moment, that's a South African, that's from South Africa, you know, the easiest, quickest way for us to get people back to South Africa is to target that repeater rate. And South Africa has a massive repeater rate of customer. So if your customers, if you think about your existing customer base, what could you convey to them that explains that you're travel ready, but also tugs on their heartstrings and makes them remember why they love South Africa? So I think that's kind of our message to you today from a South Africa's Travel Ready. Show your networks how you are travel ready. Show your networks what they're missing out on, so that when they are able to come back here, you don't have to go through the point of persuading them. They're just waiting to come.
There's a question here as well, just about people are obviously offering up their properties, which is amazing. They are asking questions about who we have in mind and timing. So timing, we've started reviews already. We have a list of influencers that we are working with. So what we can possibly do, and we can chat about this as a collective, is that once you email us all your properties and whoever's interested, then we can share with you a list of influencers, and we can share the properties with them, and then they can kind of choose which ones they want to go to. We've got a comment here from Michael, who says, can I comment on the actual German market? Michael, I don't know if you want to elaborate on that, maybe just by unmuting and telling us.
Thank you very much, Davina. I think it's important to know also for all participants that Germany went through a similar structure and strategy and opened regional in Europe. And the return at the moment is that they are actually going back in the second phase of lockdowns because travelers come back with the infection, etc. And I think if we don't get immediate responses, or if you don't, as a product, don't get immediate responses from your partners in Germany, there's a simple reason to that they are at the moment running so drastically through the same situation as we here in South Africa. Even the third biggest operator in Germany is now restructuring, and all the bigger operators using the COVID pandemic to restructure their companies. I have received this week already two messages from smaller, medium-sized operators who are starting closing down because they were not in a position to postpone the trips into 2021. So most of the operators are still in short work. They work from home. They're not working from the office. So it's by far not only an issue in South Africa. And there is a lockdown in Germany for traveling to South Africa till the 31st of August 2020 at the moment. So we as a country are still on the risk list for traveling to South Africa. And from that point of view, what is the fear with a traveler at the moment? It's certain things. It's not particular about the protocols of hygiene or the hygiene protocols. The fear is more crime, because they fear that they end up in protests. They have even fears that they end up coming here but not being able to go back. So that's maybe the reason why we have to lobby even more in the source markets that we are travel ready. But of course, understandable, everything is depending on government decisions.
Thank you, Michael. And actually on that note, if I were to steal a little bit of what you've said at the end, that webinar, Dirty Word, that's being hosted on Thursday, and I know Mon is on the call with us today, and she will be one of the presenters, unpacks what happens. So if somebody is going to be stranded here or in quarantine, etc., how will we as an industry handle that? Will we have separate hotels available? So we are trying to solve every possible permutation of a problem beforehand, so that we can make sure that we're communicating to our markets that we have a plan, and it's a detailed plan. So thank you for that, Michael.
Yeah, on maybe a note on that, Natalia, particularly from the articles which I'm picking up out of the German press. Nearly every article is mentioning how bad or how insufficient the health system is in South Africa, which drives me personally crazy, because I know examples in German hospitals where you wait for the results of certain things for over a week. Maybe also in your press campaign, we have to bring that more forward, that we are also ready to handle if somebody gets infected in South Africa, that we are ready to handle it, that we have the beds and so on.
Thank you for that. I see some more questions, Davina.
Yes, I got from Lucy Brink. What engagement has there been or can there be with product managers, DMCs, and key buyers internationally to get them on board with these initiatives? She was at the head. She was head product manager until recently at the UK's largest wholesaler. And she recalls during the water crisis there was a lot of mixed messaging or no messaging. And she's just saying it's vital to get in front of these key players so they are behind us all the way.
Completely agree, and that's why we're leaning on you today. There's no such thing as a free lunch. We've monopolized your attention this afternoon, and we are begging you to use your international trade networks, the associations that you are members of internationally, to get that messaging out. So we as a PR collective, a communications collective, can give you that messaging through the toolkit. To a certain extent, we can reach those international media, but we do not have international trade as customers. We are not playing in the international association space, and would ask of you, of those of you who have those networks, to amplify the message in that space. So I hope that I've responded to that adequately. If not, feel free to let me know.
We have a question from Zephany. I hope I've pronounced that correctly. Are you doing anything with the upcoming Our Africa trade show to ensure we use that platform to raise awareness as well?
So SATSA actually is. SATSA has endorsed it, and in fact, I don't know if Rudy's on the call. We have distributed his press release on his behalf to try and get more traction from a media perspective for the platform, and we thank you guys for taking a leap of faith and doing that. Rudy, perhaps there's an opportunity for us to work a little bit more closely, and I know Gisela is here as well. So let's add that into the mix and have a chat about it. Thanks, Stephanie, for that suggestion.
Okay, we have another question. How can we restore the confidence level of the tourist? PR is powerful, but everyone is using technology. What other PR methods can one use to entice and to comfort the tourist? Yeah, so I think what we're doing through SA's Travel Ready, you know, of getting the influencers to these properties and experiencing it for themselves and talking from the heart, and I think speaking authentic experiences, I think, is showing that. Yeah, I don't know, Dion or Leslie, if you want to weigh in that as well, in terms of, yeah.
Les, you're on mute. My new favorite saying.
Davina, I agree with you there in terms of, you know, what we are doing is trying to really get that message. And I think that's what's so important, you know, sort of that feeling of safety and welcome and all of that. And that's where I think some of the campaigns are really going to be very successful.
Yeah, and obviously these influencers are online. They are using social media. They do have blogs. And like with Ryan, you know, writing for Biz Community, which is an online media platform, you know, people sharing that, more people reading it, I think is important. So yeah, and I think we are doing more PR activity online than we are in print and broadcast at the moment. We are going to do more in those areas, but our focus for the minute has actually been online.
And to also add to that, that we will be doing a series of television episodes where we have an ambassador coming through to the properties that are travel ready, that will go onto various online television stations as well.
Someone brought up the protest. Saying it was a non-event. Natalia, I don't know if you want to weigh in on this.
Not particularly. Yeah, I think we're all a little bit shell-shocked after Friday, to be honest. And again, we're a media PR collective, so that's what we know, guys. If you asked me to organize lunch, I'd struggle. So in terms of organizing protests and stuff, that's definitely not my forte. I did see, however, that a lot of people that were at the Joburg protest and the Cape Town protest had I Am Tourism banners, and I'm very thankful for that. And you know, like, protests are there to create awareness. And I know what happened in Cape Town was terrible, and it's just not possible for our tourism leaders to comment on it specifically for reasons I won't go into. But you got attention. I know, Mon, you didn't feel like you wanted to be pelted by a water gun or stun grenade, but you got attention. And that from a media perspective was incredible, the amount of coverage that you received. So you wouldn't have received that had that not happened. To sound insensitive and callous, I'm sorry, but that's just the way that it is, essentially. So I'm certainly not going to go ahead and organize a protest. But if you are wanting to organize a protest or do any action, the hashtags, to Lisa's point, that we are using are I Am Tourism and South Africa is Travel Ready. Those two hashtags. We are not using other hashtags. Those are our two hashtags. And if you are wanting to support us, those would be the two hashtags that we would ask you to at least include, so that we know that you are posting something and we can amplify it.
Just a nice comment here from Tessa, just saying perhaps as an industry we should be more careful how much of the bad news we gush onto social media, just saying perhaps now is the time to rather focus on the positive. Absolutely. Yeah, everyone just agreeing. Yeah, Dion, everyone's just asking about more information on the travel sessions, television sessions, sorry. So maybe something we can elaborate more on next week, perhaps?
We will be able to elaborate a little bit more next week, but for those that have properties that are travel ready, please, could you just send us an email letting us know which properties they are, where they are based, so that we can put the programs together, and hopefully we'll be able to elaborate a little bit more of that next week, Friday.
Okay.
I see Carmen said, as a digital agency who has tourism clients, do you think we should factor those hashtags into their social media posts? Yes, because we'll be able to see it. Other people who are following those hashtags will be able to see it and will be able to amplify it. So it's just that beacon that lets us know that you are posting, and we can put it out on our networks as well. I did see something, and I actually honestly don't know the answer, Miriam. So Miriam said, is it indeed wise to post black and white images of the I Am Tourism campaign where visible for international? Should we not appear more positive out there? So I actually see those black and white images as not as a feel sorry for me. In fact, I see it as women standing proudly, saying proudly that they are tourism. But maybe I've missed a trick. So does anybody want to weigh in on that?
Natalia, I don't know if anyone has seen that challenge accepted where it's actually become an international thing. I've seen it all over South Africa as well, where females are posting black and white photos of themselves, nominating other powerful women to take pictures, turn them into black and white, and then nominate themselves. It comes with a little message. I don't know if anyone has seen that, but what could be quite nice. And I think it aligns with what we're doing as well. So I disagree. But maybe what we can do, maybe this is an opportunity to link I Am Tourism with this challenge accepted. Possibly something to take offline with the PR collective, but just something I thought of now that, we speak about reaching the international market. This could be a good way to do that, just tapping into an international social media campaign that is around women. And since it's Women's Month, it might be a good time to align those two together.
Yeah, Davina, I have seen it and I agree with you. I do think we should actually, I don't know why we didn't think of it before. It's actually a very good idea to link the two. So the black and white actually for this moment does work with that trend that's currently on the go.
Any other comments or questions? can I ask a question? Do you find this briefing helpful, or is it not giving you the information you need to take action? Or is it giving you too much information that you feel paralyzed because you don't know where to start? Okay. Right. Seeing comments coming in.
Keep up.
Keep up. Yes. I have lots of fun on webinars when I'm trying to focus on and chats.
Definitely, I like your idea. It's great. I'm actually going to put a call in with the team tomorrow very quickly just to elaborate on that challenge accepted idea for social media.
Yes.
And I mean, we are capturing this chat, guys, so I promise we will look at everything that's come through on here. But, you know, as I said, it's very difficult to make decisions in an uncertain environment, but we lean on our expertise as people who work in communications and PR. So if you feel frustrated and you feel there's a message that's not happening, I would ask you to make us your first port of call and ask us, have you done this? Or is this happening? Or can I suggest this? Instead of perhaps approaching the journalist directly, because we've probably approached that journalist already and we don't want them to get confused. That would be a worry for me, to be very honest. And, you know, also just amplify what we're pushing out and the stuff that we're creating on behalf of the tourism industry to help you. And as I say, we are very willing to listen to any feedback and have set up that email address specifically for you to lean in and make any comments or suggestions. But you can see there is a room here of women who are fighting for you and working very hard on your behalf. And I cannot thank them enough on behalf of the tourism industry for what they're doing.
There's a few questions that are asking about SA tourism and their participation, or at least support through the hashtags that we've created.
So this is, I would say, more of a private sector initiative. We have not liaised with South African tourism, and maybe that's our bad at the moment. I think we could essentially have a conversation and see where that goes, but this is a private sector tourism business council. It started with a recovery team within the Tourism Business Council, and we haven't actually extended that government-wise yet.
Good question here from Lisa. There are other splinter groups creating awareness like Tourism Recovery SA. How would you recommend these start aligning to one message?
Great question, Tess, at least Lisa. So yes, I thankfully was added to one of the WhatsApp groups, and Ron has also been great. He phoned me a couple of weeks ago, and we want to make sure that we're supporting that initiative as well. We've undertaken to provide you with updates on that WhatsApp group, and again, if you need to email us, ask any questions, you've got that email loop as well. I can't force people to get behind one message. There are always going to be people who want to run their own marathon. All I can do is make sure that as a collective, that we as a collective are providing you with enough information that gives you the confidence that we are doing something. And if it is a cause you believe in, whether you are part of the Tourism Recovery SA splinter group or any other splinter group, that you will get behind that marathon. Because we all kind of want to finish in the same place instead of going off in a million different directions. So Lisa, if you have any ideas on that, I know Warwick's got my number. Please feel free to give me a call, and I'd love to have a chat about it.
From Monique, I'd love to focus on what else we can do apart from posting with the relevant hashtags. So I think in the presentation, it's just depending on obviously what part of the industry you're in, you know, whether you have an establishment that you can, you know, offer for influencers, or, you know, if there's a strong, powerful female that we can profile, or if there's a personal story that we can share. yeah, I know that we are going to be, if I'm not mistaken, here we are going to be sharing this link so you can see in terms of the tactics that we're looking at. If there's any opinion pieces or any, you know, strong angle or story that you want us to develop on your behalf, we can absolutely do that. So there's tons of ways to get involved without just obviously sharing information on social media.
And that's in our toolkit. So if you want to go into the toolkit, and Amy will probably, I don't know, Amy, you've unmuted yourself. Do you want to talk about 5 and 5, one thing at a time? Okay, off you go.
Okay, well, I actually wanted to first address Lindsay Orrell, who's tuned in from the UK. She said she feels like the reason the movement isn't getting mass support is because there isn't a strong enough message or emotive hook to get the support of people outside of tourism. How do we motivate people in other industries to support the plight of tourism? This is actually a very important talking point because it speaks to the value chain in tourism. You know, we all see what's happening with the wine industry, and often wine and hospitality go hand in hand. And also maybe the product owners can put together a list of their value chain, you know, in terms of what products they are actually needing to purchase in order to offer the tourism experience. And we can then glean from that how we approach these other businesses to try and get them behind the message as well. But just in terms of the 5 and 5 and the do one thing, you know, we're all busy. We're all we all have quite a lot on our plate, even though it's business unusual. We just feel that it would be so much better for folks to have an action plan. So we will be feeding you a very simple task, basically one a day, for you to follow if you are behind us. And it doesn't need to be anything complicated. It's often going to be getting people to get behind our cause and doing exactly this, speaking to your networks, and people are on multiple splinter groups, just reminding them that, you know, if they just at least can include our hashtags, you know, this would make our message far more powerful when we get to that end point. The people that we're trying to reach, who are the decision makers, those are the people that will, if we are together as one voice, you know, in fact, those are two words that we're often starting to use more and more now in our posts, you know, hashtags and one voice, because without that, quite rightly, as Natalia said, you know, we all want to end up in the same place. Let's get behind one message.
Thanks, Amy. Any other questions? I see URL for the toolkit, please, Carmen. I think, I stand correct, I think it's traveltosouthafrica.org/toolkit. But if you go to the traveltosouthafrica.org website, you'll see for trade, and you click on the for trade button, it will come up with the toolkit, which is being added to. How do we prevent
the question here?
Yes.
Sorry. What would you prefer local government to assist with?
That's a good one.
Such a good one. I think get your product behind it. Share the destination information with us so that we can promote South Africa's Travel Ready. What else, ladies? What else do you think they could do? Yeah, I mean, you'll have contact with your product. So even if you wanted to, I mean, we'd be very happy to run a session with your product to explain to them what we're doing, so that they can get behind it and what assets are available and what assets we need to promote the destination. So that would be, I think,
Sorry, Natalia, there's a lot of amazing suggestions coming through, and we obviously don't have time to read through all of them, but because this is recorded, we will have this information on hand. And one of the things we are putting together is an activity list. So these are great ideas. We'll definitely put them on, you know, we'll have a look at them and see how we can work with all of them.
Yeah, loads of great questions and suggestions. Thanks, guys. Yeah, please keep them coming on the email address. We'd love that. And I think on that note, it's you're eating into my wine time, just saying. For those of us that still have wine. Yeah. Not good wine, but it's there. Thanks, guys. Thank you so much for hopping on today. And again, think about the marathon. We're running in the same direction. And when you feel panicked and you're wanting to go off, try and bring it back. Just breathe and try and bring it back. Because if we react, we're going to get nowhere. No one's going to pay any attention to us. They see we're an emotional industry. We need to respond with calm and purpose. So when you feel like you want to kill someone, breathe and just bring it back to the marathon that we're all running. Okay, breathe. We're all running in the same direction and we're here to help. So hopefully we'll see you on the next Tourism Tuesday. And we have all the chats, so we will, I think, send a little update to everybody who logged on, just with how we're going to respond to some of the questions so that you've got it. Okay. Thanks, guys. Have a great evening. Good to see all those faces again. Cheers.
Bye.
Bye.